Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode here of the Sports Ethos Teams YouTube channel. We're going to be covering some fantasy football sleepers today. I've got our resident expert, Mr. Jon Marsales, here, who actually helped us break down one of our earlier mock drafts. If you guys check that one out, he's an absolutely intelligent guy here when it comes to football. But before we do get started, we have about I would say 10 to 12 sleepers, and we'll definitely touch on some people as you guys have questions. Just shoot them to us, and we'll definitely try to hit that and see if we can find some answers for you. But we'll be going through those. If you guys haven't checked it out already, we have our NFL fantasy football draft guide up and ready for you guys. It is only $4 a month for you guys to get access to that, and we've got so many cool things there. I mean, we've got the O-line rankings, we've got offensive coordinators, what their impact on the offenses are going to be. We've got players on turf, players on grass, and who to draft and who not to draft if you're afraid of injuries. We've got just so many cool things that some people I don't think or some other sites haven't really even thought about. And it's such a low price. I mean, it's an absolute steal. So go to sportsethos.com and go to the NFL section, hit the draft guide buy now button, and you'll be able to get that draft guide for you. And you'll see some ads pretty soon here on Reddit, actually. If you're on Reddit in the fantasy football community, you'll see us there. So be on the lookout there. All right, John. So first and foremost, I know this isn't really on our docket of things to talk about today,
Okay.
but let's talk. We have to kind of, great start here. We have to kind of touch on this, though, with the DeAndre Hopkins agreeing to I think it was 2 years, $26 million deal with the Tennessee Titans. And so obviously he becomes a clear wide receiver one there, right? And before I was looking at our rankings here before we hopped on, we had him at wide receiver 19. I know I was talking to Michael Fiddle, who's another Sports Ethos guy in our wagering division, and he had him around a wide receiver 12. Where do you put Hopkins now? I mean, how far ahead does he jump now?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because it's almost a worst case scenario for him. I mean, wide receiver one, but Tennessee, they're like bottom 5 passing attempts pretty much every year.
Yeah.
Tannehill's okay, good deep ball, great play action. But I think Hop's 32 years old, something like that. Hasn't really played a full season in a while. Still super talented, but I mean, it's possible Treylon Burks overcomes him during the season. I could see that happening. And then, Chig is my big tight end sleeper. Yeah. So, Hopkins, super talented wide receiver, super sketchy situation.
Yeah, I think you're in the same boat as I am. I mean, I think through 9 games last season, he was wide receiver 9, but like he's going to the Titans, and obviously, Derrick Henry, they just have so much, of the run game going on there. Tough to really rank him too highly, I think. I know that Shane said we moved him up to a wide receiver 15, which I feel like that's pretty fair. I honestly, part of me wants to say that's like a ceiling there for him, though. So obviously Will Levis, might be taking over the reins at some point. They've got Tannehill there. I mean, there's just not a lot to be excited about, in my opinion. So I think people are really moving them way up their boards, and I don't know. I kind of want to pump the brakes on that. So I just wanted to I was curious to see what your thoughts were there on that. So it sounds like we're kind of in tune there. So.
Yeah, well, people love to overreact to news, right? So it's like, if I'm looking at wide receivers here on Fantasy Pros, 14, 15, 16, Devontae Smith, Keenan Allen, DK, like I'm taking all those guys before Hopkins. Maybe not Keenan Allen, but DK, like what are we talking about here?
Yeah, DK Metcalf. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many people like Olave's out there. What we have a wide receiver 15 in our rankings. I mean, him. Yeah, take him over. I think you probably do. Yeah. So
if you play the game, take this guy over Olave. Oh, I'm taking Olave. Did we just have
a? No, absolutely. So yeah. So we're in agreement there. Let's get to our sleepers, though. I mean, that's what the people that came here for. So we've got a list of 9 guys, and we'll be throwing in probably a few more as we talk along about this kind of stuff. But let's hit our first guy here. And if you guys didn't tune into our draft guide show, these are actually sleepers that we gave away in that show. Each guy came on and gave me their favorite sleepers. So we're going to talk about each of these guys and how we feel about them, John and I, if they really are sleeping material or if we're not as high on them maybe as the contributor was. First off, we've got Calvin Ridley, who is Jason Baum's guy. And obviously Jacksonville, we have him ranked as our wide receiver 33. I'll go ahead and just drop that knowledge for you guys. Underdog has him at wide receiver 16, quite a bit higher than we do. Underdog, I will say, is half PPR, and our rankings are full PPR at this moment. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but shouldn't be much of a difference. The ADP on Underdog is 32.3. So look, I've got some notes here, but let me have you, John, as a resident analyst here, talk to me a little bit about Calvin Ridley and how you feel about his upcoming season.
Ridley's about as tough as it gets, right? Because he's barely played in 2 years. He shut himself down for the anxiety and then the gambling. So I never, ever like guys who've had that big a layoff, right? We saw Watson come back last year after missing the season and then suspension. He was trash. But the Jags are probably my top 3 offenses that I want to invest in. So I think he's going to get tons of targets, lots of red zone. He's big body. Lawrence is awesome. I probably won't be drafting him just because I think he's got a super high ceiling. Like he could wide receiver 15, no problem. But it's just I don't like the layoff, and even when he's playing, he gets hurt a lot. But he's never really had a great QB because he had washed up Matt Ryan. So
yeah. No, I agree there. I am grabbing him in my best ball tourneys. I think I've got him in maybe 4 or 5 leagues. I mean, I'm in like 12 or 13 at this point. So, I do have him quite a bit, but I think the reason for that being is as you said, I think the ceiling is really high there. Obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, you can speak to that. You did your piece on the 5 most potent offenses, and I really like that piece that you did there. And, obviously Jacksonville, one of those offenses that's going to be good now and in the future. I know Nathan Hernandez, also one of our dynasty guys, did a piece about them, projecting them out, 3-4 years into the future, and they're just going to continue to be just beasts on the offensive end. That being said, I mean, there's so many offensive weapons on that team. You have Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, obviously Evan Ingram, and let's talk a little bit about that. Evan Ingram, getting that franchise tag, getting that 3-year, $41.25 million deal, just happened. Was it today or yesterday? Within the last 48 hours or so, and so. You have to figure that he, factors in pretty highly into that offensive hierarchy as well. So it's a crowded room. I mean, I don't know. I think, like I said, it's big ceiling, but I don't know if you can bank on him absolutely hitting his floor. I mean, what if you were to project him? I mean, we have him at the wide receiver 33, which seems a little bit low. But if you were to project him out for his floor, I mean, where do you think he ends up there?
I think wide receiver 33 is probably a little low, but I mean, if it all depends. If he plays 17 games, right, you're looking probably 1,200 yards, 8 TDs, and that'd be great. But it's just it's tough because I think Trevor Lawrence is the real deal. I think he's probably throwing 4,700 yards, 35 TDs. Like, I think he's just gonna be a monster. But so, where would I take Ridley? Like, if he's glutted around, like, Godwin, Debo, the DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, right? And those guys, yeah, I'll take Ridley over them. But that's mostly me betting on Trevor Lawrence than me betting on Ridley.
Yeah. So buy into that Jacksonville offense. I don't think it's a bad idea to call him a sleeper because I think he is a guy that can absolutely jump through the roof there. So, but there is obviously associated risk with that. Next guy here, this is kind of almost flipping the script here because you were telling me before we came on here, you kind of have a little bit of a kind of 2 different sleepers, right? There's like the deep sleepers, and then there's sleepers. I mean, you said something about they beat their value by 2 rounds. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So if someone beats their value by about 2 rounds, we'll qualify them as a sleeper. But deep sleepers are a different thing. And Ryan, who's one of our podcast hosts, had Paris Campbell on the Draft Guide show as one of his sleepers. I do like this call. I mean, New York Giants, wide receiver. That wide receiver room is just absolutely hard to figure out right now. But he could line up in the slot for him. What are your thoughts here on Paris Campbell for this upcoming season? Oh, did I lose you there, John?
Oh, are we? No, I'm here.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on Paris Campbell for the upcoming season?
I always liked Paris Campbell. I remember, last or 2 years ago, I had him kind of as a pretty big sleeper, but he's kind of just been under the radar, hasn't really had a shot. So he's got good speed, size, hands, also great name. I'm a big fan of the great name theory. And so, he's barely getting drafted right now. So yeah, you get him, your 12th, 13th round, if he can crack 1,000 yards receiving, that's just going to be a massive, massive win. He's never done that, but Yeah, he wasn't a name that I really even thought about. But he's definitely a guy you want to put in kind of in your queue and just, make sure maybe, end of the draft, you get him, or you pay $1 for him in an auction.
Right. Yeah, just one of those end of the bench guys. Take a flyer late in the draft. I've got no problem with that. We do currently have him unranked in our rankings for wide receivers. Our underdog
Yeah.
has him as the wide receiver 78 with an ADP of 176.9. So going pretty late there as well. So I mean, let's talk about the Giants a little bit. I mean, what do Daniel Jones, going to get some yards with his legs, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But where how does that wide receiver room play out for you?
I mean, it's kind of it's crowded with a bunch of guys that aren't that talented, right? Like Wendell Robinson,
Yeah, Wendell.
he could be good. But Barkley's gonna be catching balls out of the backfield. People are really high on Waller. Having a big bounce back season, which I'm not necessarily sure about, but I'm not a huge Daniel Jones guy, but I am a Dayball believer. So, I'm definitely down to invest in anything, Dayball's, repping and pushing. So, I don't foresee myself having many or any really actual Giants receivers or even players this season. I'm not that high in them, but, I do understand that some people are.
Yeah, I think Waller and if we'll talk about Daniel Jones in a minute here, but Daniel Jones, I think those are guys that might end up in a roster here or there. But I'm not really targeting any of these wide receivers. But I do like the Paris Campbell call there. I mean, someone's got to get those catches for the wide receivers. So it could be.
Nobody has in a couple of years, but eventually somebody will have to.
Eventually, if they hope to win some games. All right, let's move on though. Let's talk a little bit about Trey Lance. This was Mike Coles, who's our other podcast host, who came on. And obviously, 49ers QB only played 2 games last season because of that fractured ankle that didn't heal properly. We've currently got him unranked in our QB rankings. I think we went 45 or something deep and don't have him on there at all. But Underdog has him as our QB 31. So he made the top 32 teams there. He made that ADP of 212.1. So going super late in best ball drafts. I guess just in general, 49ers, QB situation. What's your read on that? I mean, Purdy, Lance, what do you like there?
Yeah, well, if you want some hyperbole, Trey Lance's potential to be the biggest sleeper in the history of fantasy football.
Wow, that is hyperbole. Explain yourself, sir.
Well, I mean, you got, one of the best offenses in football, right? That, surrounded by just unbelievable weapons. Shanahan's going to put him in a perfect position to succeed. Right? We don't know how healthy Purdy's going to be. They traded up for Lance, 3rd overall pick. Post-hype sleeper, right? He's not great at throwing the ball, but they'll just give him all sorts of gimmick, and what do? You just dump it off to Debo, you Kittle over the middle, Ayuk, screens to McCaffrey, right? He can rack up some monster numbers without doing much. And, he's a running quarterback. So, there's a world in which, maybe they go Lance over Purdy. Lance plays, maybe 14, 15 games, and he easily finishes as a QB, in the top 10 QB. So it's almost criminal not to make sure you get him just at the end of your bench, because it's going to cost you nothing and could win you everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you go late in the draft without a QB, maybe he's like one of your last picks there. Absolutely huge ceiling there. You'll just have to hold it out until when he's playing and when he's starting.
He can't be your only QB. He's like,
no.
If you're in a 2 QB league, he's your 3rd QB.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't. It's a stash. It's a stash at this point. So he's not going to be in your starting lineup. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people have just straight up forgotten about him because of all the games missed, and so there's a huge opportunity here. I really like that call. And we all know with Mike Coles, he's a big shot in the dark guy because he loves to play those parlays and everything. So he's taking a big shot there.
In that division too, right? You get the Cardinals and Rams might be probably are going to be the 2 of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
So, you get 4 of those games, and Lance, if he's running, you're probably looking 80, 100 yards rushing every game just from him.
Yeah. Sticking with the QBs, we have our next sleeper here is Daniel Jones, and this was Brian that was into him. I know you said you weren't really into Daniel Jones. We have him ranked as our QB 17 on our rankings. Underdog has him as QB 14 with an ADP of 114.1. He's QB with the ability to scramble. He had the 5th most rushing yards last season among QBs with 708. After him, it was like, top 5, and then there was just a huge drop off when it comes to rushing. So he's the last of those kind of rushing QBs. But I mean, he wasn't far off from the other 3 guys that are right ahead of him. So, ability to get yards with his legs, obviously cemented as the starter there. I've got no qualms going with Daniel Jones as my starting QB if I go late in drafts. I mean, what do you feel about it, man?
I won't be going with Daniel Jones as my starting QB. But he kind of gets it's like a racial bias because he's white but he's a running quarterback, so it just like doesn't compute. But the Giants they're just so weird because it's like he'll probably have like maybe a 200-yard passing, 60 yards rushing, and then maybe and then another rushing TD or passing TD, right? He's gonna scramble together these QB points for fantasy, but I don't love that division, right? Dallas is in Philly, defensive monsters. Washington's going to be really good defensively. So the Giants are going to more grind it out, hand it off to Barkley, and then I don't even know if they're going to have a 1,000-yard receiver. So I don't see like Jones. I don't see him cracking 4,000 yards passing by any means. Maybe 3,400.
Yeah.
And then, but if he can get to 600-700 yards rushing, he'll be a guy that doesn't probably win you anything, the league, but he'll keep you afloat.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll probably finish somewhere in that top 12, 13, 14, area where it's like, you could have him as your starting QB, but like he's not going to have big weeks. I mean, like you said, there's no real weapons there that we're afraid of. I mean, Engram, it's like there's just not a lot of deep ball potential there, not a lot of huge weapons for us to really look for him to have like a QB2, QB3 week, regularly. I mean, maybe there's 1 week where he does something like that, but
yeah, he'd need like 2 rushing touchdowns, which he can do. But.
Yeah. So there you go. That's our take on Daniel Jones. We're not super high on him, but I think you could draft him. I think it's fine if he's your QB2. That'd be pretty dope, I think. Brandon Ayuk is our next guy here, and Sean Ryder had him, who worked on a lot of our wide receiver stuff. Obviously, a 49ers wide receiver here. We've got him ranked as our wide receiver 29, and Underdog has him ranked as wide receiver 28, so pretty close there. ADP of 50.8. But of course, all that uncertainty in the QB room to start the season. I mean, how you feeling about Brandon Ayuk there?
Is it Ayuk or Ayuk?
Ayuk, however you pronounce it. Sorry, I'm
not sure. I'm terrible.
I'm really not sure either.
I'm a big Ayuk guy. I remember I got him 2 years ago as a second year, but that's when he wasn't even playing for the first couple games, and he's having some off-field issues with the team. But then last year he was pretty much the most reliable player. Right, Debo kind of had a letdown. Kittle was hit or miss for almost the whole season, but somehow finished with I think 12 TDs. And Ayuk is really the stable force there, right? Whenever you watch the Niners and they throw downfield, it's actually almost always Ayuk grabbing the ball. So, but so if Purdy's his QB, I think Ayuk's gonna probably smash that. 1,200 yards probably. If it's Trey Lance, you can almost cut that in half. Because Lance is just not going to be going downfield, and it's going to be a totally different kind of style of attack. But I'd say Purdy's the safer bet anyway. So yeah, I love Ayuk. I'll be taking Ayuk whenever and wherever.
It is Brandon Ayuk, so I apologize. You are correct there. I wanted to look that up there. As you were talking, I was looking. I was like, wait a minute, how do you pronounce this name?
So you weren't even listening. You were just.
Wasn't even listening to you, really. I was just listening to this guy pronounce the name for me. But no, I think we kind of hashed out the 49ers situation there. It's just high-powered offense. So I think wide receiver 29, wide receiver 28, going around 50.8. So what would that be? The fifth round, somewhere in there, somewhere in the 5th round. I mean, I think that's absolutely totally spot on and fine there. So does it qualify as a sleeper for you? Because if he wants to be a sleeper for drafting in the 5th round, he has to give us 3rd round value. Do you think he can reach that ceiling?
I probably sleeper might be a little like strong, but he's kind of like a forgotten man,
Yeah.
Just because the Niners, the situation was messy, and McCaffrey and Debo kind of get all the headlines, and people love Kittle, so he's kind of like the 4th option. But I think he's going to be he's the downfield option. He's he's got great yak, good hands. He's huge. I think Ayuk's a guy who's probably going to almost a guarantee to beat his ADP, but I don't think he'll crush it.
All right. Before we do move on to the next guy here, I want to go ahead and just shout out all our guys here that have been doing great work with the Sports Ethos NFL Draft Guide. Go to sportsethos.com, grab that draft guide. We have all this stuff here for you in written form. We have so many other charts and helpful just bits of information. Consume as much as you can right now. It's going to help you when it comes time to draft your team. So sportsethos.com, again, it's just $4 per month to go get that. And please do also like and subscribe to the YouTube channel here so you can get notified every time we go live with new video content. I wanted to take a break there because this next guy I'm going to have to talk a lot about here. Jared Goff was Nathan Hernandez's sleeper. So he stole a little bit of my thunder, but that's okay. I threw another sleeper into this list here at the end. But yeah, Jared Goff, let me just espouse my love for the man right now. Detroit Lions, I think, the Detroit Lions have the highest implied point total in the NFC North out of all those teams. NFC North has really weak pass defenses throughout the whole division. So I'm expecting some big things from Goff and the Lions here. We have him ranked as our QB 14. Underdog has him as QB 17 with an 8, and his ADP is 130. And I think, both of those instances, you're kind of taking him at the floor. I think that's the floor for Goff. And I really do feel like when we're talking about his ceiling, I've got him, I'm trying to see, I think I had him for a ceiling here as QB6. So, I think, and if he ends up QB6, I mean, you're still losing in that position every time you play the other 5 QBs in your league. So it's not like I'm saying, this guy's absolutely going to smash it and be QB1 on the season. I really don't think that's the case, but I think his floor is somewhere around QB 14. His ceiling is somewhere around QB6. He's a reliable guy. Again, weak defenses over there. His passing yards on DraftKings was set at 4,000.5 for the over and under. Passing touchdowns 25.5. If he hits those, he ends up somewhere in the top 10 easily. But I think the running back situation with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, it's a nice one. I mean, I think there's some 2 good weapons there, but those aren't like bell cow QBs. Neither of those are running backs. So I don't think either of those guys are really just demanding them to hand the ball to them. So I think they're going to split those backfield carries. And, Sam Laporta is another weapon they added, obviously, the rookie there, the tight end. So I know rookie tight ends are not necessarily always performing well, but I think, Laporta could be one of those exceptions to the rule. So I'm high on the Detroit Lions. I'm high on Jared Goff. Talk me down from this ledge here.
I won't talk you down from the ledge, but I'll give you maybe like a safety line, just to make sure you don't jump. No, I like Goff, but like Goff's like I don't even know. He's like a very specific car that you can only drive in certain weather, right? You can't take him out if it's too hot, if it's rainy, right? But Lions are their schedule works great. I think they only have like one outdoor game after like the second half of the season. But Goff's one of those guys. He's great if you're like in a 1 QP league, but you have 2 good QBs, and then you're kind of alternating based on schedule. So like I know him, and if you like go with him and Carr, they have a great schedule overlap where they're when one team's playing a good D, you get a bad D. Because like Goff, I think he had only 8 touchdowns on the road last year. So it's like you really don't want to pay him, in like on a windy day, anywhere outside.
This is Jamie came for the golf talk. Yeah.
But my number one sleeper, Jameson Williams. So I think Goff's the guy you really want after week 7 when Jameson's back, deep field threat, opening up the field. Him and Amon St. Brown are just going to crush it. So I love Goff for later in the season.
Yeah, the sun got himself on Monroe St. Brown and
Sun God.
and Jameson Williams are obviously the 2 biggest weapons there, the top skilled players next to him. So, I think, but I think that's interesting that you say that because I think, being that we're drafting him somewhere, what was his ADP, 128.5 or so. So we're drafting him, 12th round, 11th round, 13th round, somewhere in there. You're drafting him super late. He's probably going to end up giving you that sleeper status where he beats that by 2 rounds. And I think it's easy to guess and pick and choose which weeks you don't start him, right? Based on what you said there. So I think he's a nice guy to target there, and like you said, pair him with a QB that has a nice overlapping schedule. So That's my top guy there, but Nathan stole him from me. The good job, Nathan. Zach Charbonnet, the wine himself, is
Jamie
yeah,
Zacho guy.
yeah. That's Jamie McCory, sleeper there. Seattle Seahawks running back. Talk to me a little bit about Charbonnet.
I mean, I kind of got on Charbonnet when Jamie was pushing him really hard, and that makes a lot of sense because the Seahawks they like to run the ball. They don't have the best O line, but their style is to smash the line, set up the play action, and then hit DK lock it downfield. Rookie running backs they're kind of like a secret sauce, right? You never really know what you're going to get, or they can pop out from out of nowhere. So Charbonnet's going. Where's he going? Like he's way like what 8th, 9th round.
Yeah, Charbonnet. Round. So we've got him ranked as our RB45. Underdog's got him ranked as RB33. He's ADP is 101.5 in best ball draft. So that would be 10th round or so, around there, 9th round maybe, 9th or 10th round. So you're not spending, and I think there's a difference there in the formats between best ball, and we're usually talking about season long. And I think in best ball you're really looking for the upside pick, and so he's going a little earlier there than he will go in most redraft leagues. He'll probably go 10th round later.
Kenneth Walker might not actually be good, right? He kind of just is a home run hitter. So right, if Charbonnet can actually pick up the 4 or 5 yards of carry. It could start as a timeshare, and then it could flip by midseason. And then Walker's also had problems staying healthy. I wasn't really a believer, and now I'm like, I got Charbonnet in pen with a highlighter in a circle for my late round drafts.
So there you go, Jamie. You've convinced us, and I think obviously handcuffing kind of Walker with Charbonnet is an option, and you can absolutely do that. And I think that's a really smart move, obviously. So I love handcuffing the RBs there. So
I'd rather just not take Walker and take Charbonnet.
Or just don't take Walker if you don't like Walker. That's fine. All right, Isaiah Pacheco is the next one here. Jared Fox had him. Kansas City running back. We have him ranked as our RB22. Underdog, he's RB27. So we're actually that's the one instance where we're higher on somebody, I guess, than Underdog is. ADP is 86.3. I mean, there's opportunity there for Pacheco. I mean, he's going to be the guy. He plays for a winning team, which obviously has correlation with, running backs, performing better than average because they run the ball more. The teams run the ball more to control the clock and have some clock management there when they're up on other teams. So I like Pacheco. I like him here. I like him, snagging him somewhere in the looks like probably 7th, 8th round, somewhere in that range. It's a really good place to snag him is like your RB3.
I almost don't want to hype him up because I love him so much. I don't want him to start moving up boards. All right. I did some deep diving on the Chiefs. And just Pacheco's he jumps off the page, right? He's an explosive power runner. He gets stronger as he's running. I think the Chiefs pass, 66% of the time, and they love passing in the red zone. They're one of the few teams that pass more, inside the 10 than run. But, Jarrett McKinnon stole a lot of touchdowns, as running back, right, receiving. But he's 31. He's never really done it before. He's older. Clyde, never was. I don't understand how Pacheco is so down in ranks and ADPs. I think he's just going to have an absolute insane season. As long as the Chiefs trust him and lean on him and don't go into some sort of running back by committee, I'm as high as Pacheco as I am on any player in fantasy.
Well, there you go. That's going to be our favorite sleeper there. So definitely grab him. Looks like again somewhere 7th, 8th round. I mean, easy choice if he's sitting out there at that point. If you're in competitive leagues, you might have to jump on him another round or two earlier. But last one I wanted to throw in here, and I don't know if you had a chance to do any research on this guy here, but a guy I wanted to highlight is just he's going to probably go undrafted in many leagues, but a guy to kind of circle and have on your watch list, or maybe you use your last round pick on him. Tim Patrick of the Denver Broncos. And of course, we have him unranked in our wide receiver rankings. For Underdog, he's wide receiver 74, ADP of 171.1. But before the injuries, I mean, he had a good rapport building with Russell Wilson. And, if you're someone out there that's buying up Russell Wilson stock, I think, Tim Patrick coming back could be a part of that resurgence that you see from Russell Wilson. So maybe it's a good stacking opportunity there. You can get them both very cheap. Russell Wilson's not going off the boards anytime soon. And Tim Patrick, like I said, probably not even going to get drafted. So you can just go stash him after the draft or just keep him on your watch list. So what do you feel about, what do you feel about the Denver Broncos in general? And is Tim Patrick the guy that you target on the wide receiver room there?
I don't know. The Broncos are so tough because Russ was my boy for years, and I would always bet on the Seahawks, bet on Russ, and then it was an abomination last year, right? I think he led the league in sacks. He had no protection. He couldn't make right reads. But Cortland Sutton isn't really the guy, and Jerry Jeudy's the best at Twitter workouts, but he hasn't really produced full season. So there is room. And I'm a Sean Payton believer. He is kind of a QB whisperer. He's, he'll probably like Dayball. He'll get that offense moving day one. So yeah, late round sleeper, Tim Patrick. Yeah, of course. I think he'll be more probably a late in the season guy because he already tore his ACL. Yeah. That's kind of it's kind of like a year and a half injury where you're back after a year, but you're not back until, maybe a few months after that. So I never like getting somebody who tore his ACL and, is ahead of progress and, all those, cliches. And then they just don't show up until, second half of the season.
Yeah. So if you guys are just joining us or had missed that earlier, just to kind of recap, our sleepers in our list here from our draft guide / one guy I threw in there myself, kind of early round sleepers. So you take them a little earlier in drafts, but we're hoping they're going to beat their ADP by about 2 rounds. That'd be Calvin Ridley. That'd be Daniel Jones. And I'm going to say early. Somewhere mid-round. It qualifies as early here. Brandon Ayuk. Jared Goff is another guy there as well. And then Isaiah Pacheco. And then late round sleepers, kind of deeper sleepers almost. Zach Charbonnet, Tim Patrick, Trey Lance, and Paris Campbell are some guys we've got our eyes on as well. And I think that's everybody there covered. Now, are there any other guys that you have on your personal sleepers list that we haven't discussed yet, John?
Yeah, rookie wide receivers, right? I've talked about this before, but rookie, they used to never pop. Like even Julio Jones had an average rookie season, but that's over, right? Now rookie wide receivers, they only need about 4 or 5 weeks to gel. And then they're just, the Jordan Addison, I think, is just no one's ever been put in a better position to succeed in the history of football than Jordan Addison. Quentin Johnson, he's got to work his way up the depth chart.
Yeah. What? My hyperbole there. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm the king of hyperbole, right? Quentin Johnson on the Chargers looks great. And then I like Zay Flowers on the Ravens a lot. I do not trust Beckham. Bateman, Liz Frank injury, is he going to be able to stay healthy? Zay Flowers could fall into being the wide receiver 1 on the Ravens, who are going to be passing a ton more this year. Yeah. And you're getting these guys, what wide receivers 30 to 40, and they got easy opportunities to just crush their ADP. And as we've seen last year, right? Garrett Wilson was an absolute monster second half of the season. Who else am I forgetting? Rookie wide receiver.
Oh. I don't know, but I do like that the Zay Flowers. Yeah, we can obviously project the Lamar Jackson to throw the ball a lot more, going to have a little bit more control over the offense. So I like that call a whole lot. But yeah, rookie wide receivers, definitely something that goes overlooked. You can get them late. Was there another guy you had there on your list that you were thinking about? Maybe.
I like not really. Not for there are some other deeper like rookie wide receivers. The Carolina guy, Jonathan Mingo, he could be good because he could fall into wide receiver 1 on the Panthers. I kind of like the Pats guy. I forget what his name is now. They took him like the 6th, 7th round. He's an absolute burner. And
what about Take Bigsby? How are you feeling about that running back there? You like him?
I love the name, right? So right there.
He's got the name power going for him for sure.
But yeah, these flyer guys are just a lot of the time they end up panning out, right? You just kind of treat them like a lottery ticket. You take them, hopefully you can stash them, and then starting running back gets hurt, they can just fall into 15, 20 carries, a couple little checkdowns a game, and all of a sudden you got a starting running back that cost you almost nothing.
Yeah. So there it is, guys. That's about 12 to 15 names there for you. You threw out quite a bit there. If you guys have any questions for us, hit us with some comments on YouTube. If you guys haven't already subscribe to that YouTube channel for Sports Ethos to get notified every time we're about to go live. Hit a thumbs up on this video if you found it helpful. Leave us some comments. Tell us how we did, what we did well, what we didn't do well. You can follow me on Twitter here at Ethos Keith. Ethos Keith, and of course I had to throw that in there for Jamie, so I'm just going to throw this up here. Jamie, it's another Jamie guy. This is the Tank Big T pick. I stole that one from him as well. Jon Marsales obviously is right there. That's his Twitter feed as well. So make sure you guys follow us there on Twitter. Follow the at Ethos Fantasy FB Twitter at Ethos Fantasy FB for football. And we'll be back for next weekend, and we'll be back on Saturday with another mock draft. I'm sure. I'm thinking we might do a standard league mock draft there, John, where we do like no points per reception, 0 points per reception.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, people still play that. Not a whole lot of people, but
people play everything. So
yeah. So we might do just throw another fun one out there, and then we'll get back to the PPR and half PPR stuff the following weeks. I think we're going to have Mike Coles on as our resident analyst for that one, who does our podcast, does an amazing job there. So make sure you guys tune in there. Again, go follow us. And until next time, go have some fun.